Welcome back to Life and Sport podcast. And we're joined by a pretty ripper guest. He's a bit of a journeyman, but he's a bit of an icon as well. The mullet back in the day. His name is Mahe Fonua. Thank you for joining me today, mate. And we were just discussing off the recording, but how's your day been so far, and how's your weekend been?
First of all, thanks, mate. Cheers, CJ, for having me on, and to all the guests that are listening in. So this morning, Sunday, my Sunday's a bit different now. Got four kids, married with four kids, so I try to be more present with them instead of going out on the piss on Saturday nights and being hungover all of Sunday. So this morning I got up and went down to our local recovery facility, bit of sauna and ice bath, three sets of them, and then took the family to church, just a Catholic church around the corner from ours. Followed by a boost and some donuts for the kids at the local shopping centre.
Yeah, nice. Nice. Well, I mean, before we get stuck into your journey, obviously your most recent signing in particular over the off season, you signed with the Mackay Cutters Host Plus Cup, or Queensland Cup, to people who may not know what Host Plus Cup is. You've come back from the UK at Doncaster over to I almost said New Zealand, over to Queensland. Right. Host Plus Cup, Mackay Cutters. First of all, how's the differences been? How's adjusting back to the Australian weather going? And how was the off season for you? Energy Pro. Experience the fusion of energy and nutrition with Energy Pro. Elevate your hydration game like never before with no added sugar, all natural colors and flavors, and up to 25 grams of protein per serve. Caffeine boosted flavors, on the go protein hydration with the 9 essential BCAAs derived from whey protein isolate. These products are HASTA approved for athletes looking for that edge pre-training, during a game, and afterwards for recovery. Embrace a healthier way to energize with a fusion of flavor and function that keeps you moving forward. And don't just take our word for it. Experience the refreshing transformation with Energy Pro. It's not just protein water, it's your new essential ally. Together, let's break barriers and build a future where fitness and wellness are accessible to all. Go to energypro.com.au and use our code LS10 for 10% off at checkout.
Yeah, so it was good to come back. It's good to be back actually here in Australia. Obviously, been away for the last 4 years, or over 3.5 years, and the opportunity arose to get back into Australia, and that was with the Mackay Cutters. So here we are up in North Queensland. And yeah, the weather is still taking some used to. Spent some big winters over in England, in some minus degrees and some snowy mornings. It's a bit different over here, waking up and it's already 31 degrees at 5 a.m. in the morning and you're sweating just walking around and thinking. So, that's taken some getting used to. But, it's pretty tropical up here in Mackay, and me and my family are enjoying it. Like I said, it's beautiful to be back home in Australia, being an Australian-born kid. It's nice to be home after so long, and just, being the Australian environment.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really awesome to hear. Obviously, we'll touch on your time in the UK shortly, but obviously, my first question whenever I talk to someone about their sporting journey, is the sport obviously that they are playing. And my first question is, what's your earliest memory of rugby league?
Earliest memory of rugby league would be wearing these Diadora boots that my mate had given me, insoles and the bottom of wood. I remember sitting on the side of the field after a game, trying to screw the boots back in, but the studs was actually going through the bottom sole because there was no inner soles.
Oh, wow.
When you ask me now, that's the first thing that pops into my head right now. When you ask me the earliest rugby league memory.
That's a core memory as well. Like, that's not just that's incredible. I love that. And obviously tangenting into the same sort of thing as a youngster, who was your rugby league idol growing up?
To be fair, because being born in Melbourne and raised in Melbourne, we were AFL and still sort of an AFL dominated state. So AFL was actually my first sport growing up, watching that sport. So
who was your idol in the AFL then?
Oh, well, at Collingwood, it was.
Hey, I'm a Collingwood fan. Let's go.
Aggies, man. So my grandpa, he's an Australian-born Irishman.
Yep.
Yeah. So first what we used to see on telly was Collingwood Magpies playing, and yeah, my favourite player growing up would have been Nathan Buckley.
Yeah, same. Literally,
Yeah.
him and Anthony Rocca were my favorites watching them grow as I was growing up.
So that was, Nathan Buckley, man, he was just a great for our club, for that club, and even in the game. But then when I eventually got into rugby league and started getting a bit more familiar with the sport and the teams, I think, and I was playing in the halves when I was younger.
Okay.
Yeah, halves 5'8", and so I used to look up to Darren Lockyer. He was a big
Yeah.
one. He was a
Yeah.
pretty versatile outside back, or he was full back into 5'8", and I just loved the way he played. And then obviously found out about Melbourne Storm, and then just watching Cooper Cronk and Billy Slater.
Yeah. That's incredible. And then obviously, tangenting into your rugby league juniors with the Southeastern Titans, back in those days, sort of thing, it wouldn't have been even nowadays, it wouldn't really be a big-ish thing down in Victoria. But now, back then, it would have been even less compared to now. What was it like growing up playing rugby league? First of all, for the Southeastern Titans, and secondly, as you said, an AFL dominated state.
Yeah, so with that, thankfully now in the most recent years, Melbourne Storm's been, successful, and they've been an force in the NRL. So with that success, it's given the, Victoria itself a chance to sort of expand the game. So nowadays, it's the grassroots footy is really spreading out into the suburbs. Yep. Really good to see. I mean, I'm really proud to see that happen in Victoria, being a Victorian-born kid, and seeing rugby league really spread its grassroots.
Yep.
But yeah, in saying that, when I was younger, so I started playing under 10s. There were 6 teams at the time, but by the time I'd got, and it wasn't really that big. I think rugby union I felt like it was bigger.
It could have been bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was bigger growing up. I felt like there's more kids playing rugby union, but as I got to under 12s and 13s in those age groups, it ended up being like 3 or 4 teams in our competition. We're playing the same team every third week. So yeah, it wasn't really that big back then, but I still managed somehow, still love the game, and still managed to kick on from there, even though there was only 3 or 4 teams. So it wasn't a big pool of players for my age group.
Yeah.
But yeah, still managed to sort of keep my head down and keep cracking on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you just said, there wasn't much of a, for lack of a better term, opportunity at the time. So you did decide to head over to Canberra, which isn't too far away compared to Sydney, and playing the Raiders SG Ball sides in 08 and 09. First of all, what was that like moving away from home for relatively the first time at such a young age, and playing some SG Ball where there's genuinely a lot more teams than back home at the time?
Yeah, so that was my first taste of representative footy. So I was 14 at the time. So it was 08 and 09, but 08 was my Harold Matts year into my first year of SG Ball at Canberra. I've gone away at 14, and it was a big life shock for me, big culture shock. I've lived at home my whole life prior to that. Mum and dad doing everything for me, spoon fed. You know what I mean? And then having to move out and live with foster families and that, families that were affiliated with the club. It was big culture shock for me. Like I said, I had everything done for me, my washing and
so you had to learn how to do all that yourself, sort of thing.
Yeah, I did. So essentially I had to grow up a lot quicker than when I had to. So 14, living in another state with different family, they're not even relatives. So you got to learn to be respectful. Things that you do naturally in your own house. You can't be doing that in someone that's looking after you. You can't just go and do what you want. So growing up, I had to grow up a bit faster. Learn to be more respectful. To older people, obviously, and thankfully for my parents, I sort of had a fair idea of how that looked, and I was able to go in and into these families and sort of stand on my own 2 feet. Thankfully, by the back end of that, my second year over in Canberra, Um, I lived with. I ended up moving in with the Sauluma family. Sauluma family. That's his name's Sammy Sauluma. One of the players. He plays at Burn now. He was an ex-Raider and Sharks player. So I grew up with him. I went to school with him and lived at their house. So I'm real thankful that they took me in because I was because obviously they've been Samoan. The culture was a bit similar, so it was easy for me to relate living in a house under the same roof as them. And yeah, I'm very grateful for that family to take me in and raise me as their own while I was over in Canberra. So grateful for that opportunity being able to go because Melbourne didn't have an SG ball side at the time.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, so 2000 back end of 2007, 14 years old, move up to Canberra, living with families that I would have just met the week before. I think families in between, two families in my first year before moving into the Sauluma house. But yeah, it was a good experience. It was a good taste of representative football. Put myself up against other clubs from New South Wales. Obviously, Canberra's in the New South Wales comp, and mixing in with other kids of my age that the best of the best.
Best of the best. No, literally, jinx. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. So the best of the best, man. Playing against kids that were next big things and up and comings. And I think that had I not moved, I think things might have been different. Might have been a different story. I don't know if I, would have been able to come out the other side and of those scholarship years and being able to play at Melbourne at Storm, because I don't know, the rep footy in Melbourne wasn't as good as what it was in playing for Canberra. So yeah, who knows? I am grateful for that opportunity to go and have that scholarship, those 2 scholarship years at Canberra.
Yeah, well, off the back of those 2 years at Canberra, the Storm did come knocking, and you ended up going back down to Melbourne, going back home, and signing up a deal with that. What was that like when you're in Canberra at the time, and Melbourne are like, you know what, come back, we want you here, sort of thing? How did that sort of conversation go? How did it all sort of unfold for you?
Well, to be fair, that's not the way that it panned out. Like, I didn't ever get a call, but
okay.
It didn't happen in that way. But I come back after my 2 years at Canberra. I was always going to move back home. If Canberra wasn't going to offer me, and I didn't want to move again into Sydney with family. Still only 15, 17. So I finished up my schooling years in Canberra, and then I'm like, obviously my parents as well, because I'm still young, made a decision that I was going to move back home.
Yeah,
I knew that Melbourne had brought in a SG ball side in that 09 year. So when I got back into Melbourne, I think it was late September, finished my schooling and I'd come back, I knew that they were already doing a preseason. Some of my mates that I grew up with and I was still in touch with were in that system. They were training in that big under-18 squad, pre-Christmas squad, and hit one of them up for the coach's number, with the under-18s at the time is Kim Williams. And
so you created your own opportunity, which is incredible.
I did actually, because I had to put myself out there. I knew I was coming back into Melbourne and I didn't want to stop just playing there. That wasn't going to be the end of me. So one of my good mates, I'd message and go, hey mate, can you give me coach's number? He goes, yeah, this is Kim Williams. So I'd messaged him, just asked, hey, I'm back in town, if it's all good, if I can come down and train with you guys, and hopefully things can come of it, and you're interested in what you guys see. And that's how it all started, man. He messaged back, yeah, sweet, we've got trainings on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, come in and we'll go from there. And I'm real thankful to Kim Williams for that opportunity, because if that never happened, then I'll dare say that I wouldn't have ever been at Melbourne. So that's how that journey at Melbourne started, was with that text to Kim. And funnily enough, he's the head of football here at Mackay, and he's who brought me back. So that was
that's a full circle moment. That's awesome. We'll definitely get stuck into that towards the end. That's really awesome to hear. Right. Obviously 2012, what a whirlwind year for you. You get your NRL debut, you get your first try after being denied 4 times by the video ref previously in games beforehand. First of all, what was it like the week finding out you're going to make your debut in the NRL, not just in the NRL, but for the Storm, the club that, you worked so hard to get into, etc.?
Yeah. Mate, big blessing, man. You know, Craig Bellamy, I owe my life to that guy. He's, like I know Kim gave me the opportunity to get into the Melbourne Storm system, but Craig Bellamy's he's bred his own kind of players. Look at the players that have come through him. Yeah,
Yeah.
the list of legends and just the success that he's had over his tenure at the club. And yeah, to be able to make my debut at the club, at a club that I'm, born and raised in that town.
It'd be like Collingwood drafting you, sort of thing.
Yeah, mate, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like for an AFL Victorian kid being drafted by their AFL team that they wanted and going to play for their hometown. And Melbourne Storm being the only rugby league team and being given that chance. Around 23, I remember him telling me I was going to play. I think I still had blonde hair. I'd blonde my hair blonde because I'd had to spin the wheel a couple of weeks before, and my hair was still blonde. And I remember our assistant coach at the time, after being told I was going to play by Craig, and all over the moon, honestly over the moon, when we were pulling into my office, and he said he's going to give me a crack this week on that left wing outside Juzzy O'Neill.
Yeah.
And then anyway, our assistant coach at the time, Adam O'Brien, he's the head coach at Knights.
Yep.
My hair was blonde. He's like, "What, are you going to dye that hair black or what? Are you going to dye hair back?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." He's like, "Yeah, no rock star, mate." So yeah, that and I think that sort of helped as well because I was a bit overwhelmed, obviously having a conversation with Craig, and then brings me back down to earth with like, "Mate, you change your hair. There's no rock stars around here." You know what I mean? And
yeah.
Sort of
no egos around here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that brought me back down to earth. But yeah, getting that call up, pulled into his office, and that was sort of a long year. That was my first full NRL year. That was my first full time year, and I think round 2 or 3 early in that season, I dislocated my elbow. Funnily enough, in the 20s game against Gold Coast.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and then 20 weeks on, we end up at round 23. I think I'm pretty sure it was round 3, and then I managed to come back from my injury. They didn't want me playing 20s anymore, so they wanted to put me up in the New South Wales Cup and sort of harden me up a bit because I'm not sure if Craig sort of already had in his mind, look, we're going to try and use him. But yeah, I started playing New South Wales Cup, and then I think I played 5 or 6 games, and then he said he's going to give me a crack. Yeah, real grateful. And then it ended up being against the Gold Coast. The team.
But it was at home down in Melbourne, and you would have been able to have your family there. And what was it like sharing that experience post game with them?
Yeah, I don't know if I still hold the record, but I had 50 tickets for.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I had 50 tickets because I remember they said, obviously being the firstborn and bred Victorian, they were going to allocate as many tickets as I needed.
So they should, yeah, and not just because family, like literally, as you said, the firstborn and bred Victorian. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. I remember that, and I remember getting on the phone to my dad. I said, "Dad, I'm going to make my debut," and he's like, I asked him how many tickets, and off the top of his head, he just said 50, and we ended up using 49 of them.
Wow, I was going to say maybe you'd have spares, but no, you only had one spare. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was so good. Like obviously for a family, and I'm just obviously for my family and my dad's immediate family as well, being my last name being Fonua, and he had a few of his siblings, his niece and nephew, some of my first cousins come to that game, even though like
they may not even follow rugby league.
Yeah, like that. It was,
but they follow and support you, sort of thing.
It was a good occasion to bring all the family back together.
Yeah,
be like see your cousins until you see them at a wedding or a birthday. It was sort of like
exactly. That. Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, that phone call to my dad, some tears were shed and it was a bit emotional. Obviously, thankful to him. I wouldn't be where I am without him. I late after work, he's coming home in the mornings to take me to my footy games. Like all those little things parents do. As
1%ers that people may not see. As you're growing up, it's all those 1%ers that also help get that work ethic into you that you end up repaying those 1%ers by doing extras at training and all that sort
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah. And it is. It's something that, your parents instill into players without even into their children, without even knowing it. And I was so grateful, obviously, to my old man, working through the week, working security on the night, then after work, just come take me to my 9 o'clock game, wherever it is.
Yeah.
Straight in from work and take me to my games. And I wouldn't be where I am if he wasn't there to take me along, take me to my games. And I felt like this was, a thank you back to him, being able to call him and say, Dad, I'm making my debut for the Melbourne Storm. And obviously,
What better way than it being in Melbourne as well?
I don't know if they sort of paid that.
Surely he planned that. Surely Bellyache planned that.
Surely. I'm pretty sure that was the last game of the season, regular season, 23.
It was, yeah. It was either around 23 or 24. It was probably the last home game of the regular season at least.
Was last home game because we went on to play the Tigers at Leichhardt the week after. But so, yeah, they must have planned that and everything, mate. All the stars aligned, and I was able to have my family there and
get the win as well.
Yeah, we get the win, but so that experience itself was awesome. The game for me itself, few hiccups early in the game, but I was just in awe, rattled, because I was in awe of what's happening. I just remember going out and my first 3 touches of the game, I dropped the ball.
Oh.
Mate, I didn't have a great start to NRL. I remember first kick return, Slaxy catches on the full, and he goes, yeah, drop under. I go straight to drop under. I drop the ball clean. And one of the players from the Gold Coast team, I remember, started rubbing my head, yeah, get that into you. And then Ryan Hoffman comes over, shoves him and goes, get out of here, dog, blah, blah. Picking up for me, obviously, and then slowly sort of found my way into the game a bit later in the game. But, yeah, those first 3 touches, wasn't great.
No, that's really cool though. As you said, you're in the moment. It's incredible to hear. And obviously 2013, the following year, you get the international call up for Tonga. What was that like? Again, similar sort of vibes. What was it like for you?
I was actually quite shocked, man, because 2013 had come around, and obviously off the back of Storm, winning in 2012, and being a part of that squad. 2013, we go to England,
you win the World Club Challenge,
pick up a World Club Challenge, and then I get from that sort of kick on and end up playing the first 3 months in grade, but. Along the way, I'd never had that, and I genuinely didn't even know about the Tongan team wanting to even pick me up or whatever. And then I got the call, obviously to represent Tongan. For my dad, that was the pinnacle. Obviously him being born and raised in Tonga, for both my parents. Them being both raised in Tonga, born and raised in Tonga, and migrating over, in their late teens. That was a big one for him. So that was a big one for him. And then when I got the call to be able to be a part of that Tongan team, and it was a star-studded team at the time. When we had Fuifui Moi, when Sam Moa, some good players, and that's Nufa Salomon, some really good players at the time that were willing to put their hand up for Tonga, and I was happy to be a part of it. Brent Kite, Sikamanu, and a few other players, obviously Glenn Fisiahi in there. So there was a good team that they're building, and I was just so grateful to be a part of that even thought of me, because I was only I just turned 20 actually, and to get that call to represent Mother Nation. Being born in Australia, I'm still very proud of my heritage, and every time I put on that Tongan jersey. So to be able to get that call up, it was a big thing for my family, especially for my old man. And that game itself was actually a big one. No one knows other than my family, but see, my grandma had passed away. It was crazy. So that my grandma, I think the night before or the day before, and my family tried to hide it from me, and I ended up finding out on the way to the, but which was all right.
Would you have rather found out before, if you had your time over? Would you rather have found out after, or how you did beforehand, sort of thing?
Because that's news you can sort of never brace for, whether you say,
that's true.
found out after. So, like, the way it happened, I believe everything happens for a reason, man.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm a big believer of that. And, as in God's plans, I was supposed to find out that way. And I did. I found out on the bus. It's probably a reason why I don't go on Instagram anymore. I found out on Insta just through but
yeah,
like now pre-game, I don't do that. I don't go on my Insta pre-game anymore. If something like that happens.
Fair.
Yeah, because I mean, it could, like, to some people it could throw them off. Like, could throw them off or just put them in a different state of mind. But that happened, and I was like, nah, that can't be true. So I turned my phone off. It was just saying like a rest in peace to my grandma, and I was like, hopefully that's not true, and I've seen the wrong thing. So anyway, we go out and play the game. Mate, had a ripper of a game. I remember scored 2 tries, and it just felt like, man, everything was falling.
Did you get the win that game?
Yeah, we got the win that game comfortably. I think it was like 34-10 or something.
She was definitely watching over and helping for sure. Yeah.
I was so proud to be able to get that win, get a couple of tries, after secretly finding out.
But secretly, but not knowing if it was true because you decided not to believe it until after.
Yeah, so everyone in that, I don't know if you have seen any highlights from the game, but after the last try, the fans in that corner where I scored break the fence down at Penrith Stadium and run onto the field.
Yeah,
but
I've seen it.
There's still a conversion to go, and everyone just started running on. Anyway, I think we stopped the game after that. And then my parents...
It was like 77th minute, and there was still about 3 minutes to go, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but because that was my first game for Tonga, it was my dad's mum who passed away, but my dad and my family still came up to watch me anyway.
Yeah, wow.
Funeral was the next week. So when my dad came onto the field, because all the fans were coming onto the field, one of the security
obviously you would have seen your dad, but like there would have been a swarm of people. Did your dad just sort of stand out in the crowd on the field sort of thing?
All the fans just running past, and they'll just like congratulate you and keep running to
kind of like the fans with Buddy when he kicked his 1000th, but you would have literally just seen your dad there. Like everyone else, kind of like in those movies where it's like your tunnel vision just focuses on one person sort of thing.
Exactly that. Like it's like everyone had just parted at the right time, and there was a security guard. I don't know if he must have known my dad or not, but he escorted my dad through a bit, like through the crowd to me, and then just seeing my dad, and he just nodded his head and said that his mum had passed away, and I was giving him a big hug, and we just both shed some tears again. But he said, I know she'd be proud, and he was proud. So it was a sort of good way to sort of tick that game off.
Goosebumps just hearing that, dude. Yeah,
crazy how it all happened. And I was just real happy that I got that opportunity in my first crack for Tonga and getting that win.
Absolutely. A few years after your time at the Storm, you jetted over for the first time over to the UK at HullFC, and pretty successful time over there, the first lot. You got back-to-back Challenge Cups, which is, to anyone who's listening that may not know, the Challenge Cup is the equivalent of like the FA Cup in English Rugby League. It's some players, sure, they'll play to win a grand final in Australia, but players 99% of the time play to win the Challenge Cup in the UK. It means a lot more to them. It's a lot older. It's a lot more prestigious. And they won back-to-back. And there was a chant at the time being, you'll never win at Wembley to Hull. Well, you guys did it back to bloody back. What was it like going to Hull, first of all? New scenes, new surroundings, new bloody country, and then, going back-to-back Challenge Cup wins.
Mate, for that to happen in my career, I'm a big, like I said before, I'm a big believer that everything happened for a reason.
Absolutely.
I Melbourne. So I signed August 2015 or something like that, late in the year to HullFC, and I knew nothing about them. Right? I knew nothing about this club at the time, and I was 23 years old, just clocked up 50 games for Melbourne Storm. My manager,
which is an incredible achievement, regardless. 50 games in the NRL is no easy feat at all. So congrats on that. And you've just signed with Hull at the time. Continue. Yeah.
So 50 games in the NRL, and for Melbourne Storm when they were, still kicking ass, and like they're still Yeah. And my manager at the time had told me that there was no interest from any other club in the NRL for you.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know if that was the truth, but it was a big reality check for me and a big wake-up call. I was like, holy shit, I've just done 50 games for Melbourne Storm. I'm 23 years old and nobody wants me here. he said there's only one club that want you, and they're over in the Super League. They're called HullFC. I don't even know where that place is.
Yeah.
Never even heard and never heard of this club. Anyway, everything falls into place. Things happen, and I end up agreeing to go. Originally, he brought that up earlier in May, or maybe earlier in the year, but then come back around and goes, look, man, this is still the only club interested.
Surely not. Like, just being honest, surely not. And I know, I know it's what the manager said, but if he's still your manager, he wasn't doing a good job, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, he's not my manager.
Okay, good.
He's definitely not my manager. He's too. So I ended up getting another manager after that, but that's a different story. So yeah, at the time he just told me no, and I was like, man, you're kidding me? Like, surely something, get me in some squad of just get me
in Q Cup or New South Wales Cup so I can get a contract at another club. Surely.
Yeah. Well, I just finished doing a friggin' 50-game apprenticeship at Melbourne Storm. You can't get me anywhere.
Yeah, right.
I was like, whatever. So yeah. So he gives me a call. Me and my missus are driving home from having dinner with our mates. Gets on the phone call, put it on loudspeaker, connected to the car, and he goes, mate, HullFC have just called back. They want a decision tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning. So that's their night time.
Yeah.
My missus was in the passenger seat, just shaking her head, crying. And I was like, fuck. They wanted a decision in the morning. I was like, all right, sweet, let me sleep on it. I'll get back to you. I remember calling a meeting, called my parents to come over. And my siblings and through my aunties come in. I said, we're going to move. We're going to take up this contract over in England. That's all we've got at the moment.
Quick side note, real quick. Shout out to all of the partners and wives of players in every league, because, as you said, she was crying. She may not have wanted to go, etc. They are being the most selfless people, while players sometimes make not necessarily selfish decisions, because it's definitely not selfish. It's for the betterment and, for the family and whatnot. But they go through so much, big credit to the wives, girlfriends, all that sort of stuff of the players, because you're like, right, we're going to England on a literal dime's notice. And they're like, yep, no worries, let's do it. And then, for example, coming back to Australia, yeah, we're going back to Australia, no worries, sort of thing. Like, big ups, big ups. Sure, the parents get the recognition and the mothers and all that, but definitely the partners and the wives absolutely are part of that dream making process as well. Sorry, continue. Your family's over that night. You're about to let them know we're moving to England.
Yeah, so we're moving. So we're all sat down on my bed, and I told them, right, we're making a decision, we're going to move, and everyone just started crying. And then I was like, this is the only thing for us. For me to keep playing footy, we've got to go over there. So we made that decision that night. Next morning, 7:00, get a phone call from my manager, and I said, yeah, give him the green light. That ended up getting processed through. Mrs. wasn't happy for it, happy about it for a while, but like I said, man, everything happens for a reason, and it ended up being a blessing in disguise for us, man. It was it was real good, and I'm real thankful for my time over there, and I think it was good in the sense that I was able to apply my trade.
A fan favourite.
Yeah, so like leaving Melbourne to go to England, it gave me a chance to spread my wings a bit. Being at Melbourne, such a well-drilled club and very structured club, but going to HullFC give me a chance to sort of add my own bit of flair to what I've learned at Melbourne Storm. And all of that I've learned at Melbourne Storm, take that over to England. Went over at 23, we get married, and me and Mrs. get married at the end of that year, 2015. 1 month later, our honeymoon was to Hull over in England. We land at like 10:00 at night, Manchester Airport, and then a 2.5 hour drive out to Hull, out on the east coast. And it was cold, and it was dark, very cold and dark, and took some getting used to. But footy wise over there, mate, it was great for me, man. Like I said, it's a blessing in disguise. I was able to find my feet pretty quick. Become a sort of like a fan favorite over there, and going to Wembley, there was a big hoodoo.
Huge hoodoo.
Yeah.
Literally, you'll never win at Wembley. Yeah, was a thing.
And for that, and banners for that, for HullFC never winning at Wembley. They'd won previous in 2005, but that was in Wales, Cardiff Stadium. Anyway, so 2016, few boys, and one of the reasons I did also agree to go over, like I had Frank Pritchard going over, so I knew what signings was going over. Frank Pritchard, Sika Manu was going, and I previously played with Sika, Carlos Tumavave. It was us three that were going over from here, and they'd already had a couple of Australian boys over there. They had Mark Minicello, Stevie Michael, Fatuli Noah. So we're going
more or less an Islander contingency as well, not just an Aussie contingency.
Yeah. So it was a big Islander contingency there, and that sort of helped me sort of ease my nerves, and especially going over with a player that I'd already played with, Sika. I get along real well with, so that helped us ease our transition over there. But yeah, 2016 season itself, and the club hadn't been going too well the last couple of years, and had gone on like a long losing streak. Then round one, we come out and play Salford, we win. I get injured, and I put me on the sidelines till Easter. But we then go to Widnes round two, play them. We get absolutely pummeled. We get pumped like 50 to, I don't know if it was 50-0 or 50 to 10 or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was something
which unfortunately, to anyone that's listening, is not an uncommon occurrence in the UK and Super League, not just for Hull, but in general. Like my team, Leeds Rhinos, they literally got smashed by the equivalent. It was across 2 weeks last year, 2 rounds, 110-0 across 2 rounds. It was 60-something and 50-something-0. So it's definitely not an uncommon occurrence, even for big clubs such as Hull FC and Leeds Rhinos as well. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So that happened. The players have a big talk in the change rooms. I'd gone over, I just went up with them as a non-player. Have a big talk in change rooms, told coaches to get out, just the players, we've got to just rein it in a bit. We had a conversation in there, had a big talk. We come out, get on a 13 game win streak, something, whatever, I think 13, 14, whatever it is. But
we're incredible.
We come out after that game, everyone written us off. They're like, oh, look at these players come over from Australia, they're shit. And then we come out, bang on like half the year on a winning streak, and we find some form. And within that time, we managed to clock up those 2 Challenge Cup, the first round of the Challenge Cup, the quarterfinal, and the semi. So like we're in some good form that year. And then go into playing that Challenge Cup at Wembley against Warrington, who had a few Australians in that team as well.
And they also had a little bit of a hoodoo as well with the Challenge Cup, because they could always win grand finals, but they've also been, Challenge Cup has sort of always somewhat eluded them for a while as well.
Yeah. So both teams were both in form in the regular season. They were both in form in the regular season, but they both
doesn't mean anything when it comes to Challenge Cup, because it's a knockout. Yeah,
literally, like it's who turns up on the day, and
it's literally like a grand final every single time you play any round of the Challenge Cup.
Yeah, 100%. And then making it to Wembley was massive for the club. Making it there and having a big send off 2 days before, and it was massive for the club. And then getting there, and because I didn't play in the 2012 grand final, I was just part of the squad, but this was the biggest game that I was about to be a part of. And I remember the day of the game, like walking out onto the stadium, mate, there's like 70,000 people. It was hot. 28's hot for over there, and the field even hotter. And, mate, literally couldn't hear myself breathing walking out of that place. It was so loud. The atmosphere was roaring. We don't get off to a good start. Chrissy Sandow picks the intercept like in the first couple minutes, runs the length, gets mowed down, and they score the next play. So we ended up going in at halftime down like 10-0 something. Managed to come out. Momentum swings the other way. We end up finding the momentum and winning 12-10 that game and putting that hoodoo to bed. And that was massive, man. Massive for the club, massive.
And then you know what? The critics would have been even worse the next year, saying, "Oh, they won't go back to back," and then you never would have went, "Oh, you won't go back to back."
Right, and it was weird because it wasn't like we'd set out heavy the next year to be like, you know what, we'll go and defend it. It was more just, we've won it.
What happens?
But we'll see what happens. We'll try and win the Super League trophy instead.
Yeah, we'll focus on that now.
Yeah, we're focusing on that now because we've got one in our bag. But anyway, we ended up going, and we both runs into the Challenge Cup final, we played the top teams of like both. Like in the first year, we played St Helens, Catalans, Wigan, and then Warrington. The second
Yep.
year, we go Catalans again, Castleford, who were top
Yep.
of the table whole year 2017,
Yeah, they
Lee,
were.
and then Wigan in the Challenge Cup final. So we ended up playing some big teams going in.
The
Like,
biggest teams, if I'm being honest, the biggest teams in England rugby league.
yeah, and it was good, mate. Good feeling to have that to win once and then to be able to back it up, back it up the following year. And you sort of somewhat knew what to expect the second year and how to play it, play it out. But yeah, just things fell into place. And man, I was like, let's go back to say like real grateful for, although my manager at the time said, look, there's no one here that wants you. It became a
What a
blessing.
blessing in disguise. Yeah.
A blessing in disguise. I went over 2 years over to England, become a household name, and back-to-back
Two best
challenge.
years of your career at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And then you come back to Oz and you sign with the West Tigers. How did that opportunity come about?
So, 2017.
And at this point, you're rocking a mullet, by the way, which is
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, the very start of 2017, round one, I think we played St Helens, and I'd already cut my mullet, but
It
then
wasn't as long as it got.
no, hell no. It was like I'd had a skin fade, but the back was
Yeah.
like it was
Like
a
a
three.
tuft.
Yeah, mate,
Yeah.
literally like a button, a big button on the back of my head.
Yeah.
And everyone, all the fans are like, what the hell? This guy, the Clippers must have broke, blah, blah, blah. Everyone giving it to me. But as the year
I've got
got
a
on,
mullet currently. I
yeah,
fucking love them.
yeah. As it got on, like I was like, you know what? I don't care about this film.
It was iconic.
Yeah. And then now you see kids friggin' 7 years old running around in it like mullets in Hull. And I was just like, buddy, you don't know who first brought that to Hull.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I used to get rinsed about it at the start, but I didn't care. I just did my own thing.
Yep.
Anyway, so 2017, me and my wife have our first child,
Yep.
and that was my actual reason for coming home. So that was my reason for coming back home to Australia. I just wanted my wife to be able to have that support network around her,
Yeah. Yep.
and just to help raise our child. And we win 2 Challenge Cups, but the second one meant a bit more to me because my daughter was born 2 weeks prior to that, and she was able to watch that too. So her and my wife were able to come down, whereas in the first year it was just my wife, and there was a little bit more meaning the second year being able to have one of my kids there
Yep.
and win it back to back. But yeah, so after I had my kid, I changed managers in that time,
Yep.
and after I had my
You
kid,
actually found an NRL club for
yeah,
you. Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly that. Someone who thought I could still make it, have a crack in the NRL, and that was another reason too. Like, manager said, "Mate, what are you doing over here?" The new manager, he goes, "What are you doing over here? Well, you should be back in the NRL." I was like, "If
Yeah.
you can get, yeah, let's go."
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's what sort of opened my eyes back to the possibility of making a return to the NRL, and then having my child, I was like, I want to get back home. And luckily my form was good at the time, and I'd done those helped those helped in those Challenge Cups that the owner of the club, sort of give me his blessings. Like, no, all good, because I still
Yeah,
had one year.
you've given so much to the club,
Yeah,
sort of thing. Our time to repay you by saying, yeah, go
yeah.
ahead, go. Yeah.
They granted me my release, obviously for family reasons. They knew why I was going home. But yeah, so they gave me my blessing because I still had one more year at
Yeah.
FC. And yeah, so West Tigers come about around late in that year, and there was an opportunity to go back, and manager ends up signing that off, getting that deal done, and I was happy to be able to bring my wife and my kid back home. And yeah, at the end of that year, the 2017 year, was the World Cup.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So World Cup, I signed to West Tigers, but I ended up getting named in the World Cup squad, so I didn't start
This is for
pre-season.
Tonga, of course.
Yeah. This is for Tonga,
Well,
and I didn't. have to start my preseason until mid-December. I think a
because
week.
of the World Cup.
Yeah, because of the World Cup. Because after the World Cup, they gave us time off. And I think I'd come back like 1 week or 2 weeks before Christmas. And yeah, that's how my West Tigers career began. Get back, they had a good team, man. I think it's just weird they couldn't gel for whatever reason, but there were some good players in that team. Some good forwards that signed when I was getting signed with Ben Madalino, Russell Packer, Elijah Taylor, Chris Lawrence, and they had some good names in the forwards.
Stacked names there, yeah.
Yeah, and then Tui Lolohea was a good name coming through at the time. Luke Brooks, who ends up winning the Daniel M half of the year that year.
Yeah.
And having Benji there and Robbie Farah. So there was on paper, they had a good squad.
On paper, that team could have made the grand final.
Yeah, we had a really good squad, but for whatever reason, things didn't come to fruition, and fell out of the eight when I just finished just out of the eight, and my 2 years at West Tigers weren't as successful as my previous 2 years, but still good memories and great friendships.
To be back amongst family in Australia as well, sort of thing. As you said, that was the priority. Footy was second compared to family with wife and kids, sort of thing.
Yeah, and that was, and I was grateful to the West Tigers for giving me the opportunity to come back and still be able to play footy and provide for my family while being here in Australia. But yeah, like with West Tigers, I really enjoyed my time. But the only stink thing for me, I felt, was the 2 years in a row playing for the Tigers, I get injured. Both decent injuries that had me on the sideline for a while. I broke my forearm in 2018. Broke my forearm and had me out for like 10 weeks, 10, 11 weeks.
Well, and in saying that, I just recently interviewed Elijah Taylor, and based on what he'd said about the Super League and the UK and whatnot, I'm guessing on your behalf, you would have much rather have broken your arm in the NRL, where there's an RLPA, minimum wage, all that sort of stuff, compared to the UK.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the Super League, if you get injured, you have to pay for your own operation.
Which is, that's insane, and that there's no minimum wage. That's just, I can't fathom that. The NRL definitely needs to, if the rumors are true and they do buy out the Super League, that's going to be, part of my language, fucking amazing. Because if they do, they will implement those things that are definitely needed.
Yeah, and that's just little things that people from the outside don't really see all the time. That player welfare things where people are worried about taking the field because there's no insurance covering them if they get injured.
I genuinely didn't even know that until I interviewed Elijah. I was like, shit, because you take it for granted as a fan, thinking that all leagues like the NRL have an RLPA or these sort of things. No, not at all.
There's no table for for them people to sit at over in the Super League. Like they try to make like a equivalent of RLP over there, but they just got no power. Super League.
It's the higher ups that you're saying this is how it's going to be, like it or lamb it sort of thing, isn't it?
Exactly that. And it's cool that players from over here are going over there to go and chance their hand, and get some confidence back in their game or whatever it is, whatever reasons take them over there. But it's good to see so many Australian players going over there and going well. But there's those little things like that come into play, which I hope can get sorted if there is an RLPA or if the NRL go over and buy, a share of it and look after that part. But yeah, so back to my forearm. I ended up breaking my forearm, out for 10 weeks, come back like games, and we fall out of the eight my first year. Second year, have a cracker start to the season, play the first 10 games, get dropped reserve grade before coming back for a game, and I broke my foot, which put me out for the rest of the season. I've done a Liz Frank injury, and that's probably the worst foot injury that you can get.
Yep.
So yeah, that's what sort of dampened my time at the Tigers, those two big injuries. And funnily enough, they were both against the Raiders, both years in a row. And it was
of course, the SG ball side that you played for. Yeah, it's all full circle in your life at the moment, honestly.
full circle in my life. It's funny because you say that. So I was start at Raiders, then I come to Melbourne, and then every time Melbourne played Raiders, I never lost. I hadn't lost in a game, and then I score every time we play Raiders. I scored my first hat trick against the Raiders, and then every other time after that, I scored double. And then when I go to West Tigers, they end up becoming my bogey team, and I break my arm and break my foot.
Yeah, jeez.
Right.
That's the irony of the universe is incredible. And obviously, a little bit of luck came your way at the end of your time at the Tigers, and Hull FC come knocking again. How'd that come about? And again, what was it like going back over for another stint at Hull FC and then eventually another Tigers, this time Castleford Tigers?
Yeah. So with that, so me and the coach at Hull FC, Lee Radford, we always stayed in touch. And even when I'd first come back, he was trying to ask me to come back. Like when I first come back to the Tigers in the first year, he was like, "Oh, do you want to come back now?" And I was like, "Bro, I've only been here for 1 month. Relax, yeah.
Yeah, chill.
Get my foot in the door first and start playing before you start pull me back."
He was always keen to have you there.
Yeah, so he was always keen, and we got on real well, man. I got a lot of respect for Lee Radford, the coach over there. But I got mad love for him. He's a really good bloke, good people person, sorry, and he just has the genuine interest of that person and their family. So we got along real well, and we stayed in touch while I was over here. And they actually come over. Hull FC come over to play Wigan at Wollongong. So they were one of the teams. So they come over, and I got to see them in that year that they come while I was at Tigers. And even then, he was like, "Oh, mate, let me know if you want to come back." And I was like, "Relax, mate. I'm still a little bit." But yeah, so we stay in touch. I get injured, and he'd already sort of hit me up throughout the year anyway. And then I get injured. I'm laying in the hospital bed, and we're messaging. I was like, "Bro, if you can convince my wife to come back, we're on."
It's not me you got to convince; it's the missus.
Yeah. It's like, you convince my missus to come back, we're on. And I just wrote to the missus. I was like, "Look, there's opportunity. We could go back. Do you fancy it?" And she's like, "Nah." I don't know. I was like, sweet. And I just remember writing.
Wait, babe, it's Hull. It's not like it's a different town. You know Hull.
Yeah, yes, this place. And then I said, "Look, give us your best, and we'll go from there." And they come in with an offer that I couldn't turn down. And my missus was like, "All right, sweet. We'll just go. We'll go this time. We'll go one more time. This is the last time we're going." Sweet. But yeah, so laying in the hospital bed, me and him get messaging, and that's how that come about, man. Obviously, I've got 2 kids. I had two kids at the time, and laying in the hospital bed, I knew I was out for the rest of the season, getting this operation, and I'm just looking out for my security.
Yep.
And a way to be able to provide for my family. So, I did reach out. I'd reached out to a couple of my ex-coaches at the time too. Shot them a message, just to say, "Hey, look, I'm off contract this year. If you're interested in having me there." And the worst I'd get was a no. And
that's not a bad thing either.
Yeah, and then I just sorted out myself, because at the end of the day, I was just looking out for my family. I didn't care if it was a no. At least I know that I asked.
You'd kick yourself more not having asked and being told, "Oh, we would have had you," rather than asking and them saying no anyway. Yeah.
So the worst I could get was a no, and I'll go, "Oh, sweet, shake hands, no dramas." But yeah, so I end up signing back to Hull, and I left on really good terms. So like fans were.
You would have been given a hero's welcome on the way back.
Much. I was good. I felt good going back to a club that I knew and a town that I knew. So if there was a club that I was going to go back to in England, they were the club.
And you sure as shit weren't going to go to Hull KR. That's for sure.
Yeah, no. No. So yeah, end up going back. So we end up going back into 2019.
Yep.
Start 2020.
And then COVID hits.
Yes, man. COVID hits. We go 3 games in.
Yep.
We go 3 games into the season. I get injured against Warrington.
Was it a big injury?
Well, I do my rib cartilage, and I thought I was dying on the field.
Yeah, I was going to say, what sucks is that's an injury that, as I'm sure you know, you can't have surgery to fix that. You just literally got to give it bloody time.
sure.
Yeah,
And it's
I've done the exact same. It's fucked.
oh, it's so bad. I literally,
It's the shallow breaths, can't laugh, can't
and,
cough. Yeah,
bro, and in the way it happened, like I just rolled over my boys were tackling me, and I sort of rolled over myself, and I just felt
yeah.
like I thought stabbed my lung. I thought my ribs stabbed my lung, and I was like,
You got to pray you don't need to sneeze.
mate, 100%. And then I was on the ground for however long, and I'd get taken to hospital. I get taken to hospital. I don't have my phone on me. I'm laying in the hospital bed just asking for morphine because I
I
was
would
just.
too.
And my head trainer and my wife were in there with me. The game must have finished, obviously, and this my head trainer at the time is like, "No way." My coach gets sacked on national television.
Lee Radford gets sacked.
Sacked on television because the boys got pumped that game in the end. It was like 72-12 or something.
I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but I hate to say it, I would sack the coach after that sort of loss, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But we won weird because we won the derby just before, the week before.
Okay. Yep.
And we'd won already a couple of games in, but just because the nature of that loss, they were just like too much. And it was a weird one, man. And he goes in that section on national television, and I'm in the hospital bed. I was like, no way that's happened. That happens
On
on
national television, that's a bit how you go. Maybe do it behind closed doors, then sure.
So he speaks to Radders behind doors, then comes out television and
does
speaks
the press conference. Yeah.
Yeah. So after game where the coach usually talks, the owner down and said, "We've parted ways with him."
Fuck.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. They've said we've parted ways with Lee Radford. I was like, wow. And that wasn't like the Friday. It was a Friday night game, possibly Saturday. Then Tuesday, the country goes into lockdown. The whole country into lockdown.
The whole world goes into lockdown. Yeah.
So we all go into lockdown like that Tuesday, and like I caught up with Radford later on in the, after COVID was like sort of lifted and there was restrictions lifted, and I said he'd had a meeting with the owner like a week later, sort of patched things up, blah blah. But he said like he could have easily waited because he said had I waited 1 week, he'd still be the coach. Like come out because we had a 4 month like
break.
Well, 4 month break, 4 month off season.
You can literally be like, what went wrong? Let's fix this up. The Broncos were the opposite. They were 2 wins in a row, and then they get the spoon that year, sort of thing. So you guys, so Hull kind of did the opposite, but if only Lee was able to have one more week, you know?
Yeah. Well, if he had one night, I reckon if the owner slept on it the next night and then just been like, sweet, whatever, we'll speak to him on Monday, he would have gone into that COVID break like still the coach and then being the coach for 4 months. But anyway, sacked on the Friday, and I think the owner comes out and says sorry. Like they have a conversation and like, sorry, didn't mean it to happen that way. But well, that's just how it happened. And so we go into a 4 month friggin' we go into a 4 month break, and what happens in that break?
Which luckily gave you enough time to heal with your bloody injury without having to miss game time, technically.
Right. Yeah, exactly that. So I don't even miss it 1 week of footy. I just have a 4 month layoff, and everyone just training at home. I think the coaches dropped off weights and stuff to people's houses. Obviously, everyone can train at home. And then, like, there was a stage where you were allowed to train for 1 hour a day. So the boys would go and run on the field. We'll do like our own fitness session, like a couple times a week for, I don't know when we come back. I think we come back like early August, and we break it May, March, I don't know, whatever how the dates work out. But yeah, that year was an odd year, man. COVID was an odd year for everyone in the whole world. And then we come out, and surprisingly, the assistant coach at the time takes over, and we end up making the semi, losing to Wigan, who want to win the following week. So yeah, my time at the second time around at Hull was definitely
interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was very interesting, man. And coming off the back of that Liz Frank injury, so when I hadn't played. So my first game for the club was actually a reserve grade game back for HullFC against Bradford Bulls, just to get some minutes on my belt and get some Ks in my legs before they wanted to put me back in, which I was sweet with because I hadn't played for 6 months prior to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then we end up getting a couple wins, break into COVID, come out of the other side, and games were very odd. Everyone was playing at the same stadium, but everyone, I don't know, couldn't high five each other after scoring the try.
Yeah, couldn't. Yeah, it was so strange. And what's
Right,
crazy to think about is that was 4 years ago now. Like
right.
how far the world has come since that sort of thing. It's so interesting. And obviously, after your time at Hull, yeah, you end up going to Castleford, a different kind of Tigers. It's the Super League Tigers. How was that change going from Hull to Castleford? And
Yes.
again, what was the Misso's reaction?
Well, thanks to Hull and Castleford are only a 50-minute drive from each other. So
Yeah,
it's not just straight up the motorway. And I was going to part ways with Hull. Well, I did part ways with Hull. And funnily enough, Radford was the coach at Cass. So he was the coach at Cass. And we linked back up again.
yep,
And I think for me personally, that was what was needed. I needed a breath of fresh air, come back to HullFC. Obviously, COVID was a affected year for everyone, and then the following year, I don't know, maybe it was just complacency, whatever it was, being too comfortable in Hull. I think for me was to get out of my comfort zone and go into another club.
yep.
So I did go to Castleford, reconnect with Lee Radford and the boys that signed there, and we go all right there. And I'm playing some good, consistent footy, play every game for the club that year. So it was a good year for me, 2022, when I first went to Cass. I found the love for the game again. But in saying that, then comes last year,
Yeah.
Brad is sack again. Round 3 or round 4, he gets a sack again from Castleford. And our assistant coach, it's nearly the exact same thing happens. Our assistant coach, who was the same assistant coach at FC, takes back. But in that time that all happened, my missus and my kids had come back to Australia. So they come back in March, and I'm living solo there for the rest of the year. I said, I'll just see the season out, see the contract out with this club before I come back. And yeah, things weren't going too well at the club, especially after they sacked Bradford. We're struggling to get a win, and then must have fallen out of favour with the coach. He wasn't picking me, and I was like, "Oh, good. If you're not going to need my services, then maybe why don't I go and look elsewhere, or go back home and just come back early, because there was no point in me just not playing every week, and I'm just living over there in England.
It's not like you had your missus and kids at home where you could sort of thing help focus on that.
Exactly that. So I was like, oh well, if I'm not playing here, I might as well just go home back to my family. And we just part ways. End up parting
ways. And you basically did that, other than a short stint at Doncaster, sort of thing.
That's how that happened. So I part ways with Castleford. I'm driving home, and words travelled pretty fast. I get a phone call from CEO at Doncaster, who presented me opportunity, and like mad props to Carl Hall. We're a big uncle, and he gave me a chance. He put a proposition to me, and he said, "Look, man, their club's looking to push up for promotion, push for promotion from League One to Championship. They've got 6 games left. I think it was 6 or 7 games, 6 or 7 games left of the season, and they really want to make a push. If I'm interested in being a part of that," and I go, "You know what? Yeah, I am.
Nice.
Let me get back home." Because I was already booked to fly back home in mid-July, so I'll come back and see my missus and kids. And then I said, look, I'll finish off these last 6 weeks with the club, with Doncaster, and see how we go.
Yeah.
And you know what, I think that was the best note that I could have finished on in England. Going there, we end up playing 5 games in 6 weeks, getting them promoted. We win every game along the way. Yeah, win all games along the way, get promoted. I told Carl, I was like, all right, I want a statue outside your stadium.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was
absolutely,
like, if I help you get this done,
stand after me.
Statue outside this stadium. And he just keeps laughing. So every now and then I'll message him and just say, hey, is that statue up yet?
Is the stand in my name yet?
So, mate, it was good, man. It was a good way to finish my time over there. Great bunch of boys, man. And they really deserve to be up in that second division in Championship. And I really think that they're going to do some damage with the squad they got. So it was good for me to finish the way that I had. over there and finish on a good note. Because it would have been pretty sour just to leave England, and leave Castleford.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm thankful to Carl Hall for making that phone call to me and putting that proposition to me, and then it all worked out in the end.
Absolutely. And before we get stuck into talking about Mackay cutters and whatnot, I've got some quick fire questions for you as like a get to know you for the fans and listeners. So first question, Apple or Android?
Oh, Apple by far.
Absolutely. As I said the other day to my other guest, I've had 216 guests now, and only one has said Android.
Oh, that's telling
only
you
one. Absolutely. Next question. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Ooh, 50 First Dates, Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, so funny. Such a great film. And you know what? The underappreciated Sean Astin's character in that movie as well. So funny. So funny.
Actually, his list.
Absolutely. How do you like your steak?
Oh, medium rare.
Yeah, nice. And final question on the quick fire questions: thongs or Crocs?
Oh, thongs. Crocs are disgusting. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, the holes on them is where your dignity leaks out when you wear them.
Yeah, I've got slides, but
see, slides are all right. Slides and thongs, cool. But Crocs, nah. Yeah, fuck that. So I've got 3 final questions for you. First of all, obviously you've just not recently, but in the off season signed with Mackay Cutters, looking to make a run at the Host Plus Cup, which is the Q Cup 21 that doesn't know. First of all, how's the preseason been? And obviously this round is round 1. You've got the bye. And so what are your goals for this year for 2024 with Mackay?
Yeah. So being signed back to Mackay, it was, funnily enough, like I said before earlier in the thing, Kim Williams, who's the director of rugby here at Mackay, he was my under-18s coach, and we managed to get things sorted, and here I am in Mackay. Pre-season itself, it's been, mate, really tough. Honestly, I reckon it's probably tougher than one of some NRL ones that I've done.
So because of the weather or because of the smash in your body, or a bit of both?
A bit of all things, mate. The running we're doing is crazy. Like, just we've been doing some tough running, grueling stuff. And then I don't know if it's because it's 35 degrees when we're training, or also the other thing that comes into play is because I've never had to work, and then I'm working 10 hours and then going to training. So good mixture of all those things that is making it extra tough. But preseason's been tough, but good. Obviously beneficial, laying down a good foundation for the rest of the season.
Yep.
And look, my body's feeling great. This is the lightest I've been in my career, actually. Yeah. So I'm at my lightest that I've been, and I'm feeling fit, and the body's good to go. So I'm really looking forward to the season. My goals for me are just being consistent, man. Being on the paddock every week. I'm a bit older now. Got some young kids coming running around, and obviously going to be playing up against some boys that are coming back from the NRL. And I still want to show them, the old bulls still got a few tricks, mate, and try and keep up with the young fellas. But goals for me is just playing some consistent footy, being a good leader for the kids out there in our team. Someone that I can look up to when the going gets tough out there on the paddock. And just having my body ready to go each week. It's taken me a couple of days to recover these last couple of seasons. So hopefully now that the body's a bit lighter and feeling healthier, that will play a part into my recovery.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it.
Oh, that's awesome. I've got 2 final questions. First of all, obviously you just mentioned that you've had to work now, as in like in the sense of for lack of a term, a day job as well. What are you doing, for a crust these days on top of playing rugby league in Mackay?
Yeah, so I'm a trade assistant at UGL for an electrician trade assistant, just helping around at the workshop, push a few brooms and screw a few bolts in.
Not too labour intensive for you, given you're doing high profile rugby league stuff.
Yeah, so thankfully the job doesn't entail any strenuous work on the body. But yeah, 10-hour days, 4-day weeks, and I think the thing for some players making that transition, and there's a big one why I came to Mackay as well, was they were looking at my life post footy as well. But they wanted help with that transition of going from full-time to part-time footy and working. I didn't want to just cut cold turkey, cut away from the game cold turkey. And this club, presented me with the opportunity to do that, where I work and can play. And the job that I'm doing isn't too bad on the body. So I enjoy it, and I feel like I've landed my feet in that sense, because some players in this transition I've seen players, do it real tough for the first 6 months when they leave the game.
Sometimes even 18 months they struggle,
Hey, man, anywhere from 6 to 18 months, man. They can really struggle. And I feel like I've landed my feet in that sense, that the job I'm doing, I'm enjoying. The club that I'm at, I'm enjoying both aspects of it. So I get to come home every night to my family and my kids, and one day a week I've always got off. So I've always got a 3-day weekend where I can spend that time with my family and my kids. So that's what my job is. Just pretty much like a labourer for the electrician tradies in our workshop, and whatever they need done, I help them, and they teach me along the way. And my goal was my interest is to be an electrician apprenticeship, to do an electrician apprenticeship. So hopefully I can roll into that role back into this year.
Yeah, no, that'd be ripper. So is that hinting that this could be your last full season of, for lack of a term, top flight footy? Or is that more of if, say, your body is still as good as it is now, at the end of the season, you'll have another go next season sort of thing?
Well, I've got 2 years with Mackay. So I've got the 2 years. And I'll definitely see them out there. If my body, it's funny, I was saying that to one of the players the other day. I was like, if my body feels this good, after next year, and I'm still of value to the club, like to the team, like if I can still perform out there, it's all well and good feeling lean and self, but still got to be able to perform out on the paddock.
Be in form, yeah.
So if I can still be of value to the team and still take strong carries and do some damage out there, then I'll continue playing as long as I can, if the body's willing. The body's willing and able. I think this start of this year, these last 3 months, have really put me in a good position with my body for the remainder of this season. So if I can do that moving forward in the next couple of seasons, we'll see where that goes. But I'm definitely not ruling out continuing playing if the opportunity is there.
That's awesome. And my final question for you is, obviously, from your entire journey from 18 years old or 15, etc., even to now, you've had, you could say, 3 massive coaches play a big role in your life. Obviously, Lee Radford, the coach that's brought you back over to Mackay, and also Craig Bellamy. Of those 3, obviously they may be all 3 of them, but which one has had the biggest impact on the person and player you are today? And if it's all 3, what sort of qualities would you say you've taken from all 3, sort of thing?
For me, the main ones, so number 1 technically would be Craig Bellamy. Number 1, just the way he taught me everything I know about footy. Attitude, your discipline in the game, just the way you see the game, your attention to detail. So in that aspect, that's those qualities come from him, everything to do with football. But Lee Radford come in second for me. Nearly on par with Radders, but different level, different in a aspect. Whereas I owe a lot back to Radford because of the faith that he gave me, that gave me confidence. And he was more like getting to know the person, the player on a personal level.
Like a man manager sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly that. He was big on. He just knew how the person operated, and if things
he knew what you had for lunch yesterday on Saturday, sort of thing, and he'll ask you about it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and just knowing, like, sometimes players fall out of form, but so there's an example. I'll give you an example.
Yep.
Leeds semi-final Challenge Cup. I played bang average. We won, but I played personally shit.
Yeah.
I played a couple games on and I was out of form. They named the team. We the week before, so there's a 4-week gap between the actual Challenge Cup final. So we played Leeds, we played 2 more games. might have had a buy in that time, but I thought, oh fuck, I'm going to get dropped. I'm going to get dropped for this Challenge Cup final in 2017.
Yep.
He ends up like we ended up having a talk, and he's like, I'm going to stick with you. I know that you got it in you. I'm going to stick with you, but you better show me that I've made the right decision.
Yeah.
Because we had Steve Michaels waiting in, as the other winger that could have easily played. So that's where he showed me the faith, and I felt like I had to repay him. I come out 2 tries in that final, and I play a cracker game. I ended up playing a cracker game, and I just felt like I owed it to him. He gave me that chance to do that, because any other coach easily just been like, mate, you played 3 weeks.
If it was bellyache, he would have dropped you, sort of thing.
Really would have
for
been
the sake of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For the sake of the team, he would have dropped, because you're not performing. That's the way it is over here. In NRL, you're not performing. See you later. Next one come in, they get a chance. But he stuck with me, like Radda stuck with me, and sort of nurtured me through it. And he's like, look, stick with you. I know what you can do. You can perform for us in big games. I was like, yeah, sweet. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And I felt like I owed him one back. And that's the connection that we had. He knew the player, and he got to know us on a good personal level that he just felt like he wanted to die for him. He's like, nah, when this guy's going to war, I'm going with him.
Yeah.
So like, I love all my coaches, man. Like I'm grateful to all of them. Like the other 2 coaches I would have had in that time was Ivan Cleary. Look how successful he's been.
Oh.
And yeah, mate. And Michael Maguire. He's had some success. And yeah, I've had those good coaches. But yeah, probably them 2 really stand out to me. Would be Craig Bellamy and Radford, man. Probably for different reasons, but nearly
on the same level, but for different. Yeah,
that's
awesome.
Yeah, for different reasons, and I'm grateful to both of them. Grateful for all my coaches, but those 2, got mad love for.
No, that's awesome. So that about wraps up the podcast episode, you could say. So I want to thank you very much for your time and for coming on the podcast. And I'd love to get you on at the end of the Q Cup season to, not necessarily an interview, but just how the season went for you, how your body's feeling, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no. Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate your time. And thanks to the listeners out there. But yeah, I'd definitely be keen to catch up again in the season.